Welcome back to Challenge the Call with Max and Avery. I'm your host, Max.
And I am Avery. How are you guys?
All right, so this is officially the last episode of the year 2023, finishing it out strong, hopefully, and even more exciting, we are officially in the prime or the heart of bowl season. So we got lots of bowls coming up right around this New Year's time that we are pumped to talk about. Avery, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, man. Last episode of the year. One more year has come and gone, and here we are. We're still recording. Thank you to
Yeah.
like our 25 fans out there. We appreciate it, but it's going good. I'm good. I'm good this morning. You got
25 might be an overreach. I think I'm five of those. So
That's fair. What do you got planned for the day, man?
nothing really for the day. I might run into work and do a couple things that I need to do just before we get rolling in the next semester and whatnot. But outside of that, I don't think there's anything specific I got going on. How about you?
I got to work today, and then nothing. Liz is off. I forgot that she took a vacation day today, so maybe this morning we'll go out. We're looking for like a new key holder right by the door, so maybe we'll go to Home Depot or something.
We need to get something like that. Something that can sit on the wall that you can kind of have keys on.
Dude, it's harder to install than you think. I hate it so much because like drywall screws and like it's just I don't understand drywall. Like it's so stupid. Like why does the United States build with drywall? Other
And
countries don't build with drywall.
in college, I used a command strip. Like I literally had one
Mhm.
command hook just right inside my door, and I just hung my keys on it every day. That was my one. Like I only had one set of keys. It was just me, so I was like, all right, here we go.
Right? Well, and that's what I would love to do. I mean, but Liz one's like a decorated one, and so
Yeah,
it's
no.
like all right.
Mallory wants one that's like a mirror and then has the
Shelf.
shelf and then the hooks below
Yep.
it or whatever. So yeah,
Sucks. I'd be okay with a command strip.
right.
Like I
They're solid. It works great. I used it for
right.
2 years.
I had one in my dorm too. Like when I was in the military, I just like put it right there. Boom, good to go. Put my
Right,
badge right there. Keys, good to go. Guys are
right.
so simple. Like we could live with like a recliner, a 60-inch TV, a
Oh yeah.
PS5.
Well, you saw my apartment during my internship in Iowa City, right? Like it
Right,
quite literally was a recliner in the middle of the room because this was just like a 2 month sublease, right? So
right.
I'm not here long term, like it's whatever 2 month sublease. But yeah, it was literally a recliner with a cooler next to it that I used as like a like little side table, whatever stand, and then a little TV just in front of me, and that's where I spent all my days.
Right.
Just sitting in the recliner looking at the TV.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like that's simplicity, guys. That's all we need in life. We just need simplicity. But then women.
All right, so getting
Anyway,
into this episode, we got a lot of bowl games to talk about, so we're going to get rolling with that. First, we'll recap a couple that we've paid a little bit of attention to, or at least wanted to touch on. First one being number 16, Louisville versus USC. USC did end up winning it, obviously, 42-28. Avery, go ahead and talk about what you want to talk about this game.
so of course, we all know that Caleb Williams would not be playing for USC. And then their backup quarterback, Malachi Nelson, entered the transfer portal. So they were down to their third string quarterback, a guy named Miller Moss. And he came
Solid
out,
name.
and that's such a quarterback name, Miller
Yeah.
Moss. Such a quarterback name. He comes out and he balls the fuck out for the Holiday Bowl. Like, this was his, like, hey, this is your opportunity to be USC's starting quarterback next year. Go out, see what you got. This kid threw for 376 yards and 6 TDs and 1 interception, breaking a Holiday Bowl record in the same time. So like USC ended up beating Louisville 42-28, and now Miller Moss might be in contention to be the starting quarterback for USC next year, which is pretty impressive. Like I mean, and that plays the real question: how truly good is Caleb Williams? Because you think about it, Caleb Williams has been under Lincoln Riley since he came into college football at Oklahoma, then at USC. He's never started for a different coach than Lincoln Riley. Like, how good is Lincoln Riley compared to how good is Caleb Williams?
And that's the age-old question sometimes of even how we've said which comes first, like the coach or the quarterback, Like
Mm-hmm.
does a coach make a great quarterback? Does a talented quarterback make a coach successful? All those kind of factors. It also comes into other players on the team and stuff, like we make the argument back and forth and everything about Brock Purdy, right? Like, well, he's on the most stacked team in the NFL. Of course he's going to look good. Like, at what point or how do we determine what is truly, truly a good quarterback versus a system quarterback with an awesome head coach or a quarterback surrounded by loads of talent? I mean, even look at Patrick Mahomes right now. Like, he lost Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce's getting older. He's lost some of his other like star receivers, and he's not looking as great as he used to be. So these are some of the things that are always just kind of, like what truly makes a good quarterback? Like, do they have to have it all, or do they truly just make things good?
That's the perfect like question, because at the end of the day, man, like this raises even more red flags for Caleb Williams. Like his performance, Miller Moss's performance, it raises questions. It's like, okay, like now we see another quarterback in this system, and we've seen it before. Like we saw, like Lincoln Riley had Baker Mayfield, Heisman winner. He had Kyler Murray, Heisman winner. For like 1 year, Spencer Rattler was really good under Lincoln Riley until he kind of fell off. And then it was Caleb Williams. And ever since, it's been Caleb Williams. It's like people forget that he made Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. Granted, they're two NFL starting quarterbacks right now, but he made Baker Mayfield and Caleb Williams Heisman winner, and Kyler Murray Heisman winners. So it's like, come on, look at the track record of Lincoln Riley. He's just a damn good offensive-minded head coach. He knows how to get the most out of his quarterbacks, and Miller Moss is no different.
Well, and you just said it right there too, like offensive-minded. Like he is the opposite of Iowa. USC is literally like the opposing school of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa is all about defense, nothing flashy on the offense. We're going to hold you to like the score low, blah, 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 play the field position. USC doesn't win as many games. I know Kirk Ferentz he made a comment about this with USC. He didn't call him out by name, but he said something about, it comes down to win totals. Like, what's your wins per game? I don't care that you're, flashy, scoring 1 million points and have all these offensive stats and everything. Matter of fact, you won 7 games. We won 10. Like,
right. Well, yeah, I'm reading that quote right now. I knew there was something with Kirk that we could come back to. He said, I think there's a guy that entered the conference recently that came with a wide acclaimed offense stats and all that. That's usually how those guys become well known, because of whatever they're doing, throwing it and running it and wishbone. And then he said, but then you look a little deeper. So what's this guy's wins per year? There's usually a correlation. People who just throw the ball around, it makes it tougher to win and makes it tougher to be good on defense. And then there's a school on the West Coast right now that's going to recommit to defense. They gave up 42 to Tulane last year in a bowl game at a place where Ronnie Lott played. So now they're going to think about defense, And so, yeah, it was a shot against USC. Like USC their defense did give up 42 points to Tulane last year. I mean, no slum. Tulane's a really good non-Power 5 school. Tulane is like on a really historic stretch right now for being a really good non-Power 5 school.
Speaking of Tulane, this year they did lose to Virginia Tech in the Military Bowl, 41-20.
Which is kind of weird from like the fall of grace of beating USC last year, right? Like in the holiday.
Oh yeah.
Like they played USC, I think, in the Holiday Bowl last year, and like they won, and then this year they lose in the Military Bowl. So Tulane is one of those teams that's just up and down, but that's what you get with non-Power 5s. But no, Kirk's not wrong. Like USC I'm not worried about USC coming into the Big Ten. Like,
I'm not either.
I'm really not, because like they have no defense. I'm worried about Washington and Oregon, but I'm not worried about USC. But yeah, so that's a little interesting stat. Miller Moss balls out. Caleb Williams, how good are you? Question mark.
Oh yeah.
Red flag.
Definitely see how that affects. He'd almost be better off just playing in that game himself, right? I mean, if those were his stats, everyone would be going absolutely crazy for him right now.
We might be talking about, maybe Caleb Williams is a Bear next year. Who knows?
And another thing, I know I was just kind of mentioning this to you too, though. Miller Moss may have scored 42 points, set a record against Louisville, but also because these are bowls, Caleb Williams obviously opted out. How much of Louisville's defense opted out?
And I really don't know that. Like, I don't know that number, and that's what I hate about bowl games. So many college like seniors and like pro ready players, like they're opting out of these games, and like we don't really know who is facing who, because like just what 2 weeks ago, Louisville put up fits for Florida State and kept them out of the college football playoffs, and then they lose 42-28 against USC. Kind of weird. Like, so like you would think like they would have had to fall a lot,
Yeah.
but like no slump on Louisville this year, man. Like, I mean, Jeff Brom, he made that lateral move from Purdue to Louisville. He had a great year for Louisville. Like, they had a really solid year for
No,
like
yeah, they had an
local
awesome year.
player.
They competed in the ACC championship and stuff, and it that's the issue with bowl games though, is I always want to make these statements or have these thoughts like in this game for example, like USC just beat the runner-up ACC champion. Like, yeah, no wonder the ACC is falling the fuck apart. But then I recant every statement that I ever think about that because like you said, these are two different teams playing. We had a
Yeah,
third string quarterback going against who knows, like I'm sure there's guys that sat out for Louisville that didn't. I mean, that was like a runner up championship team. There's no way that there's not 1 to 2 guys at least that opted out to go into the draft next year. So bowl games are they're becoming so irrelevant if they're not like a New Year's Six bowl or a college football playoffs. Like, if you're not in the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl, like you're not playing with the same team that you were, like especially with the transfer portal now, even like that's another thing. Like we have guys that are looking to transfer so they don't play in the bowl, like they're trying to transfer out. And so the coaches are like, all right, instead of you playing our bowl game, then we'll just keep on going to the next guy.
for sure. Yeah, and so yeah, Miller Moss, man, Miller Moss, name to watch out for. Name to watch out for next year. Maybe he'll be good. I
We'll
would like
see. We'll see about that. But speaking of bowl games, they do still hold a little weight, and you can be a little proud of certain things. So we will go ahead and continue on with the Big Ten is officially 3-0 in their bowl games. Rutgers beat Miami 31-24 yesterday. I watched a decent chunk of that game, mostly kind of on my phone. But they had a good get. They worried me a little bit. Rutgers did get a decent lead on them pretty early, but they slowly brought it back. Miami did, and I was getting a little nervous. But Rutgers ended up holding on to it, finishing the game out 31-24. Yet another Big Ten win in this bowl season.
Big Ten is rolling right now. Isn't it crazy to see like Rutgers scored what 0 points
31
against
points.
Iowa,
Oh, against Iowa? Yeah,
and
0
then
against
like
us.
and then you see them play another Power Five school in the ACC, and they drop 31. Like, that just goes to Iowa's defense. That credit goes to Iowa's defense right there. But yeah, no, 31-24. Rutgers was a good Big Ten West school or Big Ten East school this year, and they came out and they performed and they handled business. This is a lot less embarrassing than Minnesota's win, 30-24
Yes,
against Bowling Green. This is an impressive win for the Big Ten. 31 to
no doubt.
24 against the ACC. I'll take that every day of the week.
No doubt. This game, definitely watching it and everything, I was like, okay, us beating Miami, I feel good about that. Like,
Yeah,
I can feel good about a win over, like you said, a Power 5 school, and a pretty solid one at that.
yeah,
Over, Bowling Green in the
yeah,
MAC.
right.
Like cool, guys, cool, but whatever. Um, Speaking of these Big Ten bowl games, now that it is officially like bowl weekend, we're going to kind of roll through and give you some of the other matchups that are going to be happening in the Big Ten over the weekend here. First one being today, actually, 7 p.m. Central Time, the Cotton Bowl, which this one's going to be good just for anybody in general because it is number 7 Ohio State taking on number 9 Missouri.
Yeah, yes and no. I'm excited for this game. This game kind of took a little luster away. Kyle McCord has committed to Syracuse to be the starting quarterback for the Syracuse Orange next year. So they're starting redshirt freshman Devin Brown,
That'll be
which
interesting.
we've never seen Devin Brown play a college football game. So that'll be interesting. Marvin Harrison isn't playing either. He's opting
Obviously.
out. which makes sense. Like that is one of those players. Receiver is one of those positions that you get hit. Anything could happen on any given down. Marvin Harrison is a lock for a top 3 pick right now. Understandable. I don't blame you, Marvin Harrison. Go get that bread in the NFL. There's players like that I'm like, yeah, stay out. Like, stay out. Like, it doesn't mean anything. But at the same time, it's like, it kind of ruins college football because I would
I
love to
go
see Marvin Harrison.
I go back and forth on it because at the end of the day, like it is a business decision, like it's a business decision. Like this is your career, this is your job. It's not like a typical student athlete mentality where it's like I get to enjoy this sport while I get my education, while I transition into my career, et cetera, whatever. Like at this rate, this is your career. This is how you are planning on making money for the next X amount of years. And so I completely understand where these athletes come from, wanting to sit out and all that stuff, not wanting to get hurt, not wanting to. It's a business decision. At the same time, though, as a fan of college football, like you said, like we're not watching Ohio State versus Missouri. We're watching like Ohio State's bench play Missouri's bench. Like we're watching backups. We're not watching the true talents that played all season that got them to this point. So why are we even at this point? And that's the part that's frustrating about it is we would love to see Marvin Harrison Jr. go out and play one more game and finish up the season with an awesome bowl win, but that's just it's not in his best interest, low key. And on
Right.
the flip side of that, you get players like Tyler Goodson for Iowa sitting out of the or opting out of their bowl games, and
Right.
you go undrafted to the Packers and get cut.
Yep. Which is like, why would you do that? But to be honest, if we're like making predictions, I think Missouri wins this game because they have their whole team coming back, mostly, even their starting quarterback, Brady Cook, that led Missouri to this great year that Missouri had. Missouri's usually a bottom dweller in the SEC. Like
Yeah,
they're not like a top 10 team. They finished in the top 10 this year. And Brady Cook is a big part why. He's a junior quarterback out of St. Louis, and he balled out this year. He threw for 3,000 yards, 20 TDs, and 6 interceptions. And Brady Cook you're gonna see him in this Cotton Bowl. And I think this is a game that Missouri might pull off because, like, you're playing Ohio State, that a lot of players are opting out because of the draft. Missouri's like, no, we're going to win this game. And so, like, and that's when you like face that, oh shit, starters versus backups. Is Missouri's starters better than Ohio State's backups?
which that'll be the real question because, like you said, Missouri's not necessarily known as a huge top tier school per se. They just are having a hell of a season. And it brings into the question we were talking about earlier Ohio State. Is that a system program? Like, does it matter that their quarterback is out or that Marvin Harrison's not going to be like, is their system still going to be able to overcome the talent that Missouri has on the field?
And you're right because like Ohio State's probably right up there with recruiting. They get quarterback after quarterback. Like look at the track record: C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields. Like even prior, J.T. Barrett. Like he made a little stint in the NFL for a little bit. Like you got those guys that have made an impact in the NFL and in college, and they're always like a Heisman candidate or Heisman contender. And maybe Devin Brown has something that we don't even know. Like
Yeah.
maybe he goes out like Miller Moss and
I
he
mean,
throws 6 TDs.
you
Who knows?
said red shirt freshman, like he's young,
Yeah,
like no one has seen this kid yet. I can't say how many stars he was coming out of high school or anything, or if he had stars even. I'm sure he did if he's quarterback at Ohio State. But, he could have been hot shit out of high school. He's a red shirt freshman, so he's been there for a year. He's learned the offense. He's been like practicing and, getting to know his teammates, building a connection, blah, blah, whatever you want to say. And this could be his debut. Like this could be the guy for Ohio State for a solid 4 years to come.
he was a 4-star coming out of high school. He actually came out of Gilbert, Arizona, the same high school as Brock Purdy did.
There you go.
So he that's a little fun stat line. But yeah, so 4-star quarterback. He went to Ohio State. He sat behind. Well, and like not only did he sit behind Kyle McCord this year, he sat behind C.J. Stroud last year. And so like
Exactly.
you got two guys that he sat behind that like are decent college. They were well. C.J. Stroud was a great college football quarterback, and Kyle McCord he was decent college quarterback. So like I don't know, Devin Brown he might have a lot of potential that nobody's really realizing. So, and we'll see that. And
So
that's
don't, moral of the story, don't count Ohio State out in this one. But
for sure.
moving on, Peach Bowl, number 10 Penn State versus number 11 Ole Miss.
Ooh,
Um, Another Big Ten SEC matchup going on here, along with our next game, the Music City Bowl, which is unranked Auburn versus unranked Maryland. Both these games are happening tomorrow. Penn State plays at 11 a.m. Central. Maryland's going to play at 1 p.m. Central. But how do you feel about the Big Ten SEC matchup? I feel like we're getting a lot of that down the list here.
that's going to be like that's what college football wants, right? Like that's what college football wants. They want that Big Ten versus SEC. Who's the better conference? And to be honest, the way Penn State's defense has played this year, and who is it? Drew Allure, Penn State's quarterback. He's starting in this game, which
There you go.
is cool to see. Like, I mean, he is a junior. Of course, he's going to start. Like, he's not ready for the draft and stuff. I think Penn State pulls this one off against Ole Miss. Penn
I can
State's,
see
I
it.
think they're a better football program
I
right
mean,
now.
we're talking about Rutgers being able to put up 31 points when they couldn't do shit against Iowa, right? Now
Right.
we're talking about a Penn State team that, granted, like offense still plays a role into this a little bit as far as our offense going 3 and out every possession. But Penn State put up 31 points on Iowa's defense.
Right.
Like that is a solid program that has had a lot of success this season and just throughout the years in the past. They've always been kind of contenders in the East there, sitting right behind Michigan and Ohio State. So I think they have a solid run for this. I don't know a ton about Ole Miss. I know they're kind of in the upper lower half of that tier of that SEC conference. You know, they're always kind of competing, but they're never quite in the conversation with like Alabama, Georgia, Texas next year.
Yeah. Well, and Lane Kiffin has a lot to do with what Ole Miss is now. Like Lane Kiffin has turned that program around. There is a fun fact in this game. Penn State and Ole Miss have never played each other in a bowl game or in a
Ooh,
football game at all.
new
So
matchup.
new matchup, and that's so weird to see with like college football being around for 123 years. Like it's like you've never played. Like Penn State and Ole Miss has never played before. I feel like I know we're gonna mention it here soon, but Iowa plays Tennessee every 3 or 4 years in a bowl game. Like I feel like we see Tennessee so frequently compared
I
to
mean,
like
we played Kentucky twice in a row,
right.
like the
Yeah.
past couple of years, just like back to back.
So seeing like Ole Miss and Penn State, teams that never have played each other, that's going to be a fun wrinkle into that. That's going to be okay. Let's see who's got what.
There's no background for comparison. There's no like, oh well, Penn State holds this record at 1-0
Right.
or something, or vice versa. But next game, Music City Bowl, which I mentioned, Auburn versus Maryland tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central. That one's gonna be. This is the first unranked matchup that we have, so we don't even have a analytical idea as far as who is supposed to be a better team per se. Um, Auburn did nearly beat Alabama, arguably should have beaten Alabama in the game prior to the SEC championship. So, I mean, that makes me a little nervous from a Big Ten standpoint, you know? Like
Well,
Maryland is
so on the
okay.
flip side, Maryland almost beat Michigan this year, 31-24. So on the flip side, like Maryland was the team that put up the most fits against Michigan this year. So like, I mean, two teams that almost beat the best team in their conference. So we'll see what happens on that game, but I think you're right. I think you're onto something. This might be the first loss from the Big 10 this year. I think Auburn might pull it off against Maryland.
Unfortunately, there's a strong case for that being the case here. I'd love to go undefeated. I'd love to make a clean sweep with the Big Ten outside of the college football playoffs to a degree. I'm still like confused about exactly what I want to go on there, but outside of that, I'd love to see a Big Ten sweep, and especially with all these SEC matchups. Like I know I always hate it. I hate the SEC bias so much. Like I will give them their nod where credit is due. SEC is a good conference with a lot of good schools. But don't fucking sleep on the Big Ten because like I feel like we get kind of lumped in sometimes with that Big 12 ACC mentality where it's like, oh, you're not SAC. Like shut the fuck up. Like, I don't care if we're not SEC. We are at least the second leading, strongest conference. Like, we are the ones that are actually comparable to you guys. So I want to win as many of these SEC matchups as possible because Rutgers beating an ACC school, Minnesota beating a fucking MAC school, like, that doesn't excite me like going 4-0 in these SEC matchups would.
For sure. So these teams have played each other 3 times in their history, and the last time they played was back in 1983. So I don't know if there's really much of a like comparison there because
No.
1983, um, but Auburn beat Maryland in 1983, 35-23. So um, there
I mean,
you
it
go.
sounds like a good game, I guess.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
we'll see what happens, I guess. But moving on with these Big Ten SEC matchups, this is the one. This is the one I think is a loss. Well, actually, I don't know because of people sitting. We'll find out. But number 13 LSU versus Wisconsin. That's going to happen New Year's Day, Monday at 11 a.m. Is Jalen or Jaden Daniels going to play? Do you know?
he said, "Well, I don't know. Hold on."
I can't imagine he would. Right? Like you'd think he would be sitting. But regardless, even if he is sitting out, LSU is a solid program. They are one of those kind of system schools as well. They're a big name in that SEC conference, and Wisconsin this year just did not do hot at all. You know,
Yeah.
Wisconsin did not look great. The game they had against Iowa was arguably the worst game to watch ever. It sucked. I hated it. But
So he's sitting out. Jaden Daniels is sitting out in this game. So
makes sense.
it adds another little layer into this game. Um, who knows what happens in this game? Like Wisconsin and LSU, that just is a very weird matchup for me. Like I feel like those teams also haven't. I haven't looked yet if they've ever played each other, but I don't know. Like I think Wisconsin might have a shot because LSU's whole team, they have no defense. And Jaden Daniels was that whole team. That offense was that whole team. And I don't think Jaden Daniels is a system quarterback because they have a whole new coaching staff from when like Joe Burrow and everybody was there. So like I don't necessarily think Jaden Daniels is that system quarterback. I think he's just that good.
They
And
last played in 2016, and Wisconsin won 16-14.
okay,
Overall, they are 1-1 against
one
each
and
other.
one. So this is for all the marbles right here. Um, this is to take the lead in the rivalry.
And the game prior to that was in 2014, and Wisconsin lost 24-28. So this has been a really close matchup with the two games that they have had. Winning by 2, losing by 4 just before that. Like maybe we're going to get another really tight game, only determined by a few points.
And the starting quarterback for LSU is going to be Garrett Newsemeyer. That's a name right there. He was a 4-star recruit coming from
That is the name.
LSU in 2021. So yeah, I don't know. This is another game that bowl games are so hard to predict. That's why I don't even bet on bowl games anymore
God
because
no.
like it's like I don't know who's gonna win. How does Vegas even put up these odds when we haven't seen these players in like live games that matter? You know?
Because there are multiple people. I'm sure Vegas has guys whose entire job is like, hey, you're our LSU guy. Like you're gonna fucking do everything LSU style. You know, he knows every player, he knows their stats, what they do, blah blah blah. I'm sure Vegas has some sort of system at, but like we could never do it because like we can't pay attention to that many teams and that fine of detail and that close whatever. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, bowl games are just you can say who you think is going to win based on the name, based on like typical legacies. Like we said, like Ohio State, oh, that's kind of a system school. Like they should be able to take care of Missouri, you would think, but it comes down to those players, the playmakers on the team. But getting into our last Big Ten matchup here, like you alluded to earlier, the Citrus Bowl, number 17 Iowa versus number 21 Tennessee, also happening on New Year's Day at noon. Um, I'm nervous. I'm not gonna lie, but I feel like I have a steady confidence to me of our defense being able to give Tennessee some good fits and putting up a fight.
Yeah. So Tennessee's also playing a freshman quarterback,
True
Joe
freshman.
Milton, true freshman. Um, Joe Milton, their starting quarterback, opted out once again of this game. Um, so Nico Lamaleva is starting. I think I butchered that name, but
You
Nico
think?
Lamaleva uh, is starting for the Tennessee Volunteers. Um, no, this is going to be a good game. Do you know if any Iowa players have opted out? Like, that's the
I
question I'm wondering.
I have
I
no
know Cooper
idea.
DeJean.
There are a chunk of them, I'm sure, that are either got well, because like I saw something that Vines is entering the transfer portal,
I
so I'm
saw
sure
that.
he's not playing. Cooper, I don't think is
He's
even
been
healthy to play yet,
yeah,
and even if he were, I'm sure he would be sitting too. Jay Higgins, I think, is coming back next year? Question
yeah. So
mark.
he should be playing.
So he should
Um,
be there.
and then Deacon Hill, man, we're gonna get to see probably one of the last games of Deacon Hill because Gade McNamara is gonna be the starter next year. We all know that most likely. This is also Brian Ferentz's last hurrah as our offensive coordinator. So we'll see if Brian Ferentz can get the offense going after that Big Ten championship performance. Like I'm excited for our defense, but I'm still nervous about our offense. Like,
Definitely.
and that's what scares me the most. Is like, I just, dude, I think Iowa can win this game, but I think it's gonna be a close game.
This I'm sorry. So this article, who is projected not to play in the Citrus Bowl for Iowa? First name Spencer Petras, transfer to Utah State. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
yeah,
we knew Spencer Petras wasn't going to play in the Citrus Bowl, but um, yeah, no shit. But on top of that, like I said, Vines is transferring. Um, Ontario Thompson is transferring. He's a D lineman for us. Terrio. Joe Labus, who we know is transferring. He wasn't playing anyway. Jackson Filer. I don't think he even played. He's transferring, so he's not a starter or anything for us though. He was a backup. And then I know this name, but that is what nobody called him, and I can't think of what they call it. One of our DBs is transferring. I'm not 100% sure he was a starter or not. And
come
then the obvious Eric, Luke, and Cooper are all injured. So
right.
with
Um,
Cade.
so Tennessee actually owns this record against us. We played each other 3 times. Tennessee is 2-1 against Iowa. I thought we've played more, but the last time we played was in 2015. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Yeah, 2015, and we lost 45-28. So
So, I mean, as far as what I've got here, we're not really missing anybody that played for us all season. Like
so
none of these say opted out. They all say transfer, and it's mostly guys that I don't think really played. Terrio might have played a little bit, and Vines I think played some, but I mean not hugely. And I mean Vines is a receiver, so like, what does Iowa need a receiver for anyway, right?
right,
But on the Tennessee side of things, they have at least 3 that say opted out. There's a
perfect.
lot of transfers, but I don't know if they're starting players or if they're backups, kind of like we alluded to. They definitely have more players listed than Iowa has that will not be playing. So that can potentially be a good sign. It could potentially not matter, like I said, because they could all just be backups anyway that are transferring. But 2 running backs and, like you said, Joe Milton the third, their quarterback, are all opting out. So the run game should be a little weak, if you ask me.
I'm hoping that's right because like I would love Iowa to win this game because what would that put us at 11-3 this year?
Yep,
That's
11-3
impressive. Yeah,
with a
that's
win
impressive
over an SEC school, which
with a win. Yeah,
woo,
like that would be impressive. So like, let's go Hawks. Hopefully we can pull this off, but we'll see, man. This is gonna be a good game to watch
they
on
will.
Monday.
All right. Now getting into some of our real important games. Not that I was not important or anything. Not necessarily the college football playoffs yet, but Georgia versus Florida State. Florida State ranked number 5, Georgia number 6, playing in the Orange Bowl tomorrow at 3 p.m. The reason this game is such a big game to me is because of the way Florida State got screwed or gypped or whatever you want to say, the way they got pushed out of the top 4. Um, What do you think happens? What do you think comes of this game? Anything? Like if Florida State goes out and beats Georgia, like are there riots in the streets of Florida or
I think so because like the thing is like you would think Florida State would claim themselves as a national champion, right? They would almost have to because they went undefeated all year and they just beat number 6 Georgia. Like if Florida State comes out and wins this game, like they have no reason not to claim as like a like national champion because like
100%?
yeah, this like they got screwed. Like I mean, we talked about it. I don't necessarily think they got screwed, but like they did get screwed in a way. Like they got
In a
screwed. So
in a way they definitely did. I mean it goes into the argument that even you made when we were discussing the whole should it be Alabama, should it be Florida State? You're saying Alabama beat the number one team in the country. Does that not make you the number one team in the country? Well, this is the same team that Florida State's going to be playing. So if
yep,
they beat that same exact team this close, it's not like they played them, way at the beginning of the season versus the end of the season. Now it's a bowl game, so there could be opt outs, but I feel like that would be less likely to happen when you're a 5-6 matchup just
right,
out of the football playoffs. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter to the players. Maybe it does because, like you said, if Florida State won this, they could arguably say, we beat what was the number one team in the country. The reason that Alabama got in, like, you truly, truly fucked us.
right. So in a way, I'm actually cheering heavily for Florida State in this
Oh,
game.
same.
Like
I want
because
chaos.
I want chaos, right? I want chaos. This game, like you mentioned in a previous pod, this should have been a play-in game right here. This should have been Georgia versus, or even Alabama versus Florida
Yeah.
State play-in game. Like this should have been a play-in game. So these teams have played 11 times in their history. They've actually played a lot more than what we've seen. And
Yeah.
Florida State or
Close
Georgia,
proximity. Makes
what?
sense. I said
Yeah,
close proximity. Makes sense. They're only, hours away from each other.
yeah. Georgia is 6-4-1 against Florida State. So they tied once, which that was before college football went to the overtime rules. But yeah, so 6-4-1. So yeah, this will be interesting. They're pretty evenly matched history wise. So
When was
for
their
me,
last game?
last game was oh boy, um, 1962. Here we
Wait,
are.
their most recent matchup was 1962?
1962. So I
Oh,
guess
geez.
like they played a lot in the beginning, like in the 50s, but
They were
yeah,
probably in the same conference when
back in
football
the
like just started.
probably. But yeah, 1962, Georgia and Florida State played. So I don't even know. Oh no, that was the largest amount of victory. Last game
Oh,
was in 2003. Okay,
okay. I was gonna
that's
say,
20
I was
years
like,
ago.
there's no way that they haven't played. Oh,
Uh,
geez.
in 2003, and they Georgia won 35-3. Oh,
Ooh, yeah.
yeah, but that was also 20 years ago. That was 20 years ago. So put
Oh,
that
yeah.
with a grain of salt. But yeah, so this will be a good game. I'm rooting for chaos, so I'm hoping Florida State can pull this off.
I'm
But
I'm
yeah,
hoping for that too. But other side of this now, college football playoffs. First game, Rose Bowl. Number 1 Michigan versus number 4 Alabama. Also happening New Year's Day at 4 p.m. Now this one, which is more chaos if Florida State beats Georgia? Alabama losing to Michigan right away or Alabama going on to win it all? Which one is like worse from Florida State's perspective, as far as like we should have been there?
I would say Florida State winning it, or Alabama winning it all for Florida State. Like because then the conversation and the controversy, it's completely over. Like Alabama is your best team in the country. The college football voters got it right. That's the
But
way I look at it.
if Florida State would have beaten Georgia and Alabama goes on and wins it all, could you not say, hey, we should have fucking been there and we would have won it all?
I don't know because like we haven't seen Florida State and Alabama play, So
Exactly.
like
But that there goes to show that the argument can be made,
yeah,
especially depending on how they beat Georgia. Like Alabama, I forget what exactly the score was, but like it was a close game.
it was.
And
Yeah,
so if Florida
27-20.
if Florida State somehow went and just beat the absolute bricks off of Georgia, could you not argue that if Alabama won it all, Florida State's sitting there saying, "We are national champions. That is our ring that you're wearing."
Yeah, yeah, any given Saturday, but at the same time, like, no, because like I feel like it's still like you want to see Alabama get dismantled by Michigan because then it just shows, especially a
They
blowout,
shouldn't have been there.
they shouldn't have been there at all. And it should have been Florida State, especially if Florida State goes out and like rolls Georgia, which I don't think either of those will happen. I think
No.
both are going to be a really close game. But at the end of the day, like I do think like you want Michigan to win this game. You're like fuck Alabama, fuck the college football voters in the eyes of Florida State fans and Florida State players. Fuck those two teams. Like go Michigan Wolverines, and that's kind of what I'm thinking.
That is true because that's the whole reason they put Alabama in, right? Is like they didn't want to see another blowout game just in the college football playoffs. They're like, these games are supposed to be close, competitive, whatever. Like, we can't put Florida State in and let Michigan just dominate them. Well, if you put Alabama in and Alabama gets dominated, like, you look like a pretty big idiot, don't you?
Right? Yeah. So also one thing from this game, Jim Harbaugh came out and said, Jalen Milroe reminds me of my backup quarterback, Alex Orgy, I think. I don't know, however you say that name, but
ORJI.
yeah,
Everybody that
let's
wants to try themselves.
And you know, like I kind of get where he's coming. He was trying to give compliments to Jalen Milroe, like a more polished Alex ORJI.
Orgy.
Yeah.
Orgy. I want to say orgy almost.
Orgy. But at the same time, we've all known, do not give Nick Saban bullet material to face your team because Nick Saban will use it against you every chance he gets. He's a rah-rah type of coach. He's one of those coaches that will take bits and pieces from the media and be like, he just compared you to a backup quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines. You gonna take that? And Jalen Milroe, I'm sorry, he's no backup. Like, he started the year rough, but what he did in the SEC championship was impressive. Like,
he got there. He flipped the script.
He did. He flipped the script on himself, and he is no backup. He put the team on his back, man, in the SEC championship. I like Jalen Milroe, and you know it's hard because I know you're like, who do you want to win? Who do you want to win? Like Big Ten, SEC, you're struggling with it. To be honest, I don't. I have a really hatred for Michigan right now because like the distaste of the Big Ten championship, blah blah blah. But so I kind of want to see Alabama, but it's also recency bias.
Yeah,
and Alabama's always there.
My big thoughts on it are just whoever comes out of this game, I kind of don't care because what I ultimately want is the next game to win it all. So next college football playoff, Sugar Bowl, number 2 Washington versus number 3 Texas, also happening that New Year's Day on Monday at 7:45 p.m. Central Time. Whoever wins this matchup, I want them to go on to win it all.
Me too.
And I'm the same way in this matchup myself. I don't care if Washington comes out. I don't really care if Texas comes out. I like both teams. I think both teams are soft. Like, frankly, this would be a really easy decision for me if things were flipped a little bit. Like if Texas and Alabama were flipped, I would say, oh, easy. Texas beat Michigan, Washington beat Alabama, and then Texas and Washington play in the championship, and I don't care who wins that ultimately. But this game will be interesting. I don't know. For some reason, I want to say Texas comes out with this.
I do too. I mean, we're not disagreeing on that. The way I look at it, Texas has looked more dominant throughout the year. Washington kind of reminds me of that TCU team last year that won a lot of close games. But they still won. And they had a really fun quarterback to root for. Like Max Duggan, Michael Penix, two really fun quarterbacks. But Texas also has a really fun quarterback to root for. Quinn Ewers is a stud. So we're
Texas has multiple fun quarterbacks to root
yeah,
for. I mean, shit, you have Quinn Ewers, but you got Arch Manning behind him too. That just like I could easily see him coming into some point of this game if it's like if Texas is having their way with Washington at all. I think Arch is coming out in his first college football playoffs.
which would be cool to see. Really cool to see. But no, I love the quarterback matchup. This is like an awesome quarterback matchup. Quinn Ewers, Michael Penix, two of the best quarterbacks in the country facing against each other. It's going to be a duel. I think it's going to be a high scoring game.
Oh,
Like, I
easily.
think it's going to be like a 37-31, maybe even hit the 40s. Like, I think this is going to be like a barn burner, and I'm hoping for it.
I
Like,
I
I'm
am
really,
confident for sure in at least Texas being able to put up buku points. Just like Texas is going to be on the scoreboard. Washington, I'm sure they'll have some scoring, like I'm sure they're going to do, but I don't know. Like you said, Washington's played a lot of close games and everything. And the only game I ever really watched of Texas, to be honest, is their Big 12 championship game when they absolutely beat the dicks off Oklahoma State. So when I think of Texas, that's all I can see. All I can see is them beating up on those Cowboys. And I am thinking the whole time, goddamn, they are a powerhouse and they are a force to be reckoned with.
for sure. So I'm trying to look up to see the last time these two teams have played, if they've ever played. Oh,
Oh,
they've
yeah.
actually played 5 times. Um, and one was in 2021
There
in
you
a
go.
bowl game. So, and Washington pulled that one off.
Ooh.
Washington holds it 2-3, or Texas holds it 2-3, or 3-2. So, very close matchup throughout the years. So we'll see what happens, man. We'll see
It'll
what
be
happens in this
this will
game.
be a fun one to. I think this is probably one of the ones I'm more excited for of all these bowls to be watching. I want to see that Washington versus Texas, but that that took a while. We will move on to the NFL. We'll try to get through this somewhat quickly as we don't have a ton of time left, but we will run through our playoff machine now and go ahead and tell you guys what we're thinking. So, last week, we did a pretty solid job last week. I got 10 games right. You got 9 games right.
Pretty
Like,
good.
pretty good. Out of 15 games that we guessed, like,
Not bad.
not bad at all. I also have what we need for the Bears to win here, but should we just get straight into it? Should we?
Let's do it.
All right, week 17. We already had the Jets play the Browns. I
Also,
forgot.
yeah, speaking of the Jets versus Browns, the Browns have officially clinched a playoff spot with the
Yes,
win last night.
yes.
So,
I didn't watch this game. I actually forgot it was on. I remembered 10 or 15 minutes before the game, but forgot within that 10, 15 minutes. And then 2.5 hours went by. And I was like, oh, there's a game on. But I live with my girlfriend now, so I'm not as just like, sure, let it sit on the TV and just kind of exist there. We were watching something else. But starting off with a really, really exciting matchup here. We got the Detroit Lions versus the Dallas Cowboys. What do you think? I'll let you start.
all right. So I was very high on the Lions last week, but I think the Dallas Cowboys pulled this one off. They lost to the Bills. They got smoked by the Bills last week. And the way I look at it is the Lions just clinched the North. I think this is going to be a letdown game. I think the Lions, like, they came out, they did what they needed to do, they clinched the North, and now I think this is going to be one of those games. Dallas is pissed off. They still are fighting for the NFC East. I think they come out and Dallas wins this game.
That brings up a good point that I have not thought about until now is we're reaching that time of year where we're going to potentially see some starters getting pulled, right? Like,
Yeah.
are we going to see Goff playing or Amon-Ra St. Brown playing and stuff? Because like you said, they've clenched the North. They got the North. They're in their spot. They're where they are. They're potentially could still be fighting for a number one seed in all reality. So maybe not quite yet,
Right.
but like, do we start to see some of these teams be like, you know what, we're playing in the playoffs for sure. Let's rest our like main guys or a main guy or two, maybe even just late in a game.
I think late in a game, depending on what way it goes, yes. But I also think not yet because like you're fighting for seeding at this point. You're in the
Yeah.
playoffs, but you're fighting for seeding.
And
Because
the
Lions
top
could,
three in the NFC right now, 49ers, Eagles, and Lions, they are all 11-4.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, that seed it's anybody's game. So they are still going to fight. You taking the Cowboys. I'm going to go ahead and take the Lions.
Okay.
Let's see what they come out with. Like you said, fighting for that number one seed. I think they'll have a lot of drive coming out in this one. Cowboys did famously lose your fraud bowl, so we'll see. We'll see test number 2 right here. Detroit Lions. How's it going to go? This game is being played in Dallas, though, right?
Yes.
Is that how they do this? The home team
Yeah.
is over here. Yeah. So this game will be in Dallas, so maybe a little bit of an advantage for them there. But just to see some different pictures, I'm gonna go ahead and take the Lions on that.
All right. This
All right,
next game, the Miami
Miami.
Dolphins, 11-4 versus the 12-3 Baltimore Ravens.
Now,
And
the Ravens looked good against the 49ers. They looked real solid. But as you know, I've been a fan of the Dolphins all year. I love what McDaniels is doing. I know you're going to take the Ravens, or at least I'm pretty sure you're going to take the Ravens. So all that coming into to play together, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take the Dolphins on this one right now.
all right, so you don't know what I'm thinking. I think the
Oh,
Miami Dolphins win this game.
oh,
Uh, and this is the reason why. I'm a big, firm believer on teams feeling discredited. And the Dolphins, they should have felt more of a welcome when they beat the Dallas Cowboys last week because they beat a 10-5 team or 10-4 team. They beat a 10-4 team last week. And there's still a lot of people talking about they're not sure if the Dolphins are for real right now. And I think the Dolphins come out and they're like, okay, you don't think we're real? We're going to go beat the team that just shit pumped the best team in the NFC. And we're going to go out and we're going to win this game. And so I think this game matches up very, very well for the Dolphins. The one weak spot on the Baltimore Ravens is their cornerbacks. It didn't show last week in their secondary, but that's usually the weak spot of the Baltimore Ravens this year. I think Miami matches up very well with the Baltimore Ravens, and I think Miami pulls this one off. That's my
there you
upset of
go.
the week.
We got 2 for the Dolphins. All right. Well, there we go. Next game we got Patriots versus Bills. Belichick coming off of a big win. Again, I mean, maybe not a big win, but an important win for his career against the Broncos. Bills have been steamrolling, though. You're up on the clock. What do you think?
I'm taking Buffalo. I think Buffalo's hot right now. The Bills are rolling. Josh Allen's figuring it out at the end of the year. And I think there's nothing in this world that is going to do for the Bills to lose this game. I think the Bills win this game.
I am also going to take the Bills. They're in the playoffs. They're still fighting. Patriots are already out. They did win against the Broncos, Bill Belichick last minute and whatnot, but also I would argue that was more of a Sean Payton coaching error than it was a Bill Belichick out coaching performance. Bills have been rolling. Bills are a solid team, and I think they take this. All right, our game.
This next game
of the week,
our game.
Chicago versus
Atlanta. Atlanta Falcons
the Dallas Falcons.
The Chicago Bears. Who do you got?
I've got the Bears, obviously. I can't not pick the Bears to win this. Falcons are not bad. Falcons are, they're all right. They have lost to the Panthers twice now, though, too. And the Bears are picking up steam. The Bears have been looking good lately. So I think the Bears are very, very capable to pull this one off.
Also, one thing, the Falcons, they're a dome team coming to Chicago. The elements, it's January now. This is going to be one of those games that's like, oh, shit, yeah. Like, we got to go play in Chicago against a heavy team. And Desmond Ridder hasn't looked good all year. And I think Justin Fields is going to ball out this game. I think this is going to be a Justin Fields, 3-touchdown performance. And he looks sharp. I think he's progressed every single week. And he's still fighting for his job for next year. I think Justin Fields comes out, balls out, and the Bears win this game.
I think the Bears have a potential to have their best game here. I think the Bears just might play their best game of the season right here, right now against the Falcons. Because if anything else, if they don't make the playoffs, I can assure you they're going to spend these last 2 games trying to absolutely dominate their opponents and just show, hey, next year, we're coming.
Run it back. Yeah, run it back. Run it back with the same team, add a couple of players, run it back.
Next game we got these Tennessee Titans versus the Houston Texans. What are you thinking?
CJ Stroud's back. He's officially back. So I think the Texans come back on the win column finally. I didn't realize how much CJ Stroud meant to the Houston Texans until we watched Case Keenum play. CJ Stroud has turned that organization around. They they look solid, and I think Texans pulled this game off.
I am inclined to say the Titans to get some different picture views, but I can't bet against Stroud like that.
Yeah,
Stroud being back, Stroud is awesome. The Texans are a solid team. I really do love CJ Stroud. I think he's an awesome quarterback. I think he does a spectacular job. I cannot realistically take the Titans to beat Stroud, so I'm gonna take the Texans too.
for sure.
All right, next game we got the Raiders and the Colts. The Raiders have been looking good lately. Um, Offense put up a bunch of points. They're doing crazy. And the defense, just last game, basically won that game against the Chiefs of all teams, too. Uh, I think I know which way you're going, and I'd like to pick opposite, but I am going first, so I got to go with my instinct, and I'm going to say Raiders probably take this. I still have yet to see the Colts play, so that might be an issue on my part, but I haven't seen the Colts play at all. I've seen the Raiders dominate on two different fronts the past couple games. Give me the Raiders.
I'm taking the Raiders too. You knew I was going to take the Raiders.
I
I
knew.
love what Antonio Pierce is doing. He's doing big things, man, and I love it. I'm a closeted Raiders fan. Everybody knows that, and I just love to see this team progress and like look good. And let's go Raiders. All right. Anyways,
Carolina Panthers versus Jacksonville Jaguars. What
you
do you
go
think?
first. I'm taking the
No,
Panthers.
I just went first.
Okay, well, I'm taking the Panthers. And that's crazy, right? But one thing, the Panthers, they look good against Green Bay. Bryce Young is coming out of his own. He's finally looking like an NFL quarterback. Also, I know they've only won 2 games this year, but the Jaguars are on a 4-game losing streak. They're on a 4-game losing streak, and I don't think they're going to turn this thing around. So I'm taking the Panthers. I think this is a variable, winnable game for the Carolina Panthers, and I think the Panthers win this game.
All right, finally, I can hedge that one. I don't have any issues with taking the Jaguars. They're fighting. They're currently sitting in the playoffs right now, or maybe not quite necessarily sitting in, but right on with a win, they are sitting in the playoffs. They have the division lead over the Texans if they beat the Panthers. I think they have a lot to play for. I don't think they're a bad team per se, and they may have lost their last 4, but at some point the script flips. I mean, look
Right.
at the Eagles. The Eagles had lost their last 3 or 4, were doing bad, that were down bad, blah blah blah. Come across the Giants, a weaker opponent that they should beat, and they managed to pull it off. I think the same can happen for the Jaguars right here. So give me the Jags.
All right. Next game, Rams versus Giants.
Ooh, I don't know. Giants just benched DeVito after a bad loss to the Eagles. The Rams have cut back. Rams have been making a run. This is the first game, though. I got to mention for the Bears, the Rams do have to lose this game for the Bears to make the playoffs. The Bears want to go to the playoffs. The Rams need to lose to the Giants. That being said, I am not confident in that happening. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Rams.
I'm taking the Giants. I think Giants come out with Tyrod Taylor. He looked good in the second half against the Eagles. Almost brought him back to win that game.
They did almost beat the Eagles, which is kind of. Does that say more against the Eagles or more to the Giants? Hard to say, but that was a strong resume game for them.
Also, the Rams are going to be traveling cross country, like from LA to New York, and
Yeah.
the Rams are
Weather.
a dome team, and they're playing in New York. So I think this is going to be a low scoring Giants win.
I can see that.
I'm taking it. I'm taking it.
I can see that.
feel it.
All right, next game we've got Arizona Cardinals versus the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think?
I think Eagles pull this one off easily. I don't know if we even really got to discuss this. I think the Eagles kind of found their mojo last week, and the Cardinals kind of look like a trash team right now. And so I think
If the Eagles can pull out a dub against a Giants team that is kind of putting some things together, they should have no problem taking care of the Arizona Cardinals whatsoever.
Yeah.
This one is going to be an interesting game here. Saints versus Buccaneers. Okay, let me see. This game does have implications. The Saints have to lose to the Bucks or the Falcons next week. So if the Bears want to make the playoffs, the Saints have to lose at least one game. Baker Mayfield's been playing well. He's been looking good, and the Bucks are rolling. So this time I'm going to go with the interest of the Bears and go ahead and give me the Bucks to win it.
I'm taking the Saints. I think this is a bounce back week by Derek Carr. I think the Saints come out. They have a good defense, and I think Baker's like magical run kind of ends right here. And I think the Saints pulled this one off.
All right, next matchup, 49ers versus the Washington Commanders. You're up.
49ers win this game. The Commanders just benched Sam Howell. They're not going to move forward with him for next year. Jacoby Brissett starting in place. Jacoby's not a bad quarterback. I think it's going to be a closer game than a lot of people realize. But I do think that the 49ers pulled this one off because they're pissed off, man. They're pissed off.
Brock Purdy coming off one of the worst games he's had this season. He's looking to bounce back, and so is everybody else on that team. They're looking to come back strong against the Commanders. And like you said, Sam Howell got benched. Commanders are rolling in with a backup quarterback who hasn't been playing all season. Not to say that, we liked Jacoby Brissett when he was with the Browns. We thought they should make him the guy. And so, they have a solid backup quarterback, taking nothing away from him. But when you're playing a team like the 49ers that's just stacked at every level, it's difficult to come out with anything good.
For sure.
Next game, Pittsburgh Steelers, Seattle Seahawks.
I'll go first.
No, you just went first.
Okay.
I have been rolling on a Seattle train lately. I've been thinking they looked good. I've been liking them. I haven't watched the Steelers really either. Seattle does have to lose though to the Steelers and the Cardinals next week if the Bears want to make the playoffs. That being said, I'm not sure they do. I'm going to go with preference here, and I'm going to go ahead and give me Seattle. I like Seattle.
All right. I'm picking Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh comes out, they win this game. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing record in Pittsburgh in his coaching tenure. And this is a big game to go show that it's not going to be a losing record. And I think Pittsburgh matches up well with Seattle, so I think I'd take Pittsburgh in this game.
All right. LA Chargers versus the Denver Broncos. You're up.
Battle of the backup quarterbacks here. Russell Wilson has been officially benched by Sean Payton, partly due because they're going to cut him in March and move on, and they don't want him to get hurt. So we're going to see Jarrett Stidham. Fun fact about Jarrett Stidham also ended Derek Carr's reign as the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback last year. So he's 2 years in a row came in and replaced long-term starting quarterbacks in the NFL 2 years in a row. With that being said, I think the Broncos are in disarray, and I think the Chargers look good under their interim head coach. I'm taking the Los Angeles Chargers and Easton Stick to win this game.
I may have made a mistake last week in picking the Broncos over the Patriots. Thank you, Sean Payton. But for sake of everything, one, I'm a closeted Broncos fan. Two, fading your picks, going on the other side. I'm just give me the Broncos. Let's see what they got. Maybe Stidham can do some things. He didn't do a horrible job when he came in for the Raiders and ended Carr's career there. Maybe he'll have that same kind of at least couple game mentality. Gets in, finishes the season strong for him, and let's see what happens next year. I'm gonna go ahead and take him. Next game we have the Bengals versus the Chiefs. Oh, this is a tough one. The Bengals are still rolling with Browning as their quarterback.
Yeah.
They just lost to the Steelers badly. The Chiefs also just lost, however, though, to the Raiders fairly badly, you could say. So in this battle of the bads, who takes it? I'm going to go ahead. I fuck with the Bengals a little bit. I kind of like making fun of Mahomes being a diva a bit and stuff, and the Chiefs falling apart. I kind of think it's funny, so I'm gonna go ahead and take the Bengals.
I'm taking Kansas City. I think this is a bounce back game. Like they're still 9-6. At the end of the day, they still have a winning record. We would kill to be 9-6.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
be honest. We would kill as Chicago Bears fans to be 9-6. So like I think this is one of those games that Kansas City comes out and they look like the prime Kansas City Chiefs, and Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are having a good game, and I think they pull this one off.
All right. Last game we have on the slate here, good old NFC North matchup, the Green Bay Packers versus the Minnesota Vikings. What do you think?
I think the Packers win this game. I hate it. I hate it so much that I want to say that. But I think Green Bay comes out, they win this game, and Minnesota falls to 7-9. But yeah, just something about it. It screams out Green Bay. It screams
All
out
right.
Green Bay.
For the Bears to make the playoffs, this is the confusing one right here. If the Packers win, the Vikings need to lose to the Lions next week. If the Vikings win, then the Lions game next week doesn't matter. The Vikings are in just above the Bears. Bears will be in at number 7, assuming the Bears win out. So, that being said, and just present some different pictures, whatnot here. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Vikings on this one. They don't look great. They look very, very up and down. That being said, I have not watched a Packers game in a little while, honestly, but I don't know how great they were necessarily looking this season in general either. Give me Justin Jefferson to be back and kind of tear it up on the field and just
With Nick Mullins?
With Nick, I mean, put it in his hands, a 1-yard completion, let him go get 50.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, just go ahead and give me the Vikings on that. We'll see how that works. All right, give me let's start with the AFC. What does your AFC look like?
My AFC, my number 1 seed is the Miami Dolphins. My number 2 seed is the Baltimore Ravens, and they would be playing the number 7 Pittsburgh Steelers. My number 3 seed is the Kansas City Chiefs, and they would be playing the number 6 seed, the Buffalo Bills. And my number 4 seed is the Houston Texans, and they'd be playing the number 5 seed, the Cleveland Browns and Joe Flacco. Let's see.
Almost the same as far as teams being in. Slight change in some of the positioning and whatnot. Number 1, Dolphins, obviously. We both have that same pick there with them over the Ravens. Number 2, Ravens playing the number 7 Texans.
Okay.
Number 3, Chiefs playing the number 6 Bills. And number 4, Jaguars playing the number 5 Browns is what I've got.
So you don't got the Steelers in?
No, I had the Steelers losing. And I had the Jags winning. So Jags are in, Steelers are not.
All right. So this NFC, I got the number 1, 49ers, and then the number 2, Philadelphia Eagles facing the number 7, Los Angeles Rams. And then I got the number 3, Detroit Lions facing the number 6, Green Bay Packers. And then I got the number 4, Tampa Bay Buccaneers facing the number 5, Dallas Cowboys.
Same story, different picture a little bit. I've got number 1, 49ers having their bye. Number 2, Lions facing the number 7, Seahawks. Number 3, Eagles facing the number 6, Rams. And number 4, Buccaneers facing the number 5, Cowboys.
All right. Yeah, not a bad kind of prediction this week. Also, I'm just gonna read over the draft order, the top 5. So still Carolina, even with the win for me, they would be 3-13. But that eliminates the gap. If they won one more, Arizona would take over that number 1 pick. So it goes Carolina, Chicago's pick, number 1, Arizona number 2, Washington number 3, Tampa Bay number 4, and Tennessee number 5. And then Chicago would be in 10th for their original pick, their pick.
So we will see how this ends up going. I'm kind of excited this week. This week is going to give us a really, really good idea. And this could potentially be the Bears' elimination week. With a loss, with a Rams win, or with a Seattle win, we're out. So those 3 games are going to be really big games as far as the Bears fandom is concerned.
I hope everything goes our way. I really hope everything goes our way and we
I hope
continue
so.
to fight another day.
I would love nothing more than to squeak in at that 7 spot in the playoffs after this year that we've had.
I was going to say, you can't tell me we don't look like a more dangerous team than the Green Bay
We do.
Packers
If
right now.
if we would have just been able to pull off one of those games that we should have won earlier, if not 2 of them, we'd have a really good shot at getting in right now.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like a couple of games that stand out to me, the Broncos game, the Saints game. Like there's a couple of those games that was just like we lost in heartbreaking fashion, or even Cleveland. Like there's those 3 games right now. You flip the script, the Bears are sitting at 10-6 or 10-5. Like those 3 games, we're sitting at 10-5. Like it sucks, man. It really sucks.
Definitely.
But
The Bears should have at least won one other game here, or the Broncos game even.
yeah,
Wasn't that a game we were wildly up in and
28 to 3 or 28
and just
to
let
7.
them absolutely rush back on it? Like that's one that hurts big time. The Lions game, the first Lions game that we played, 31-26.
We were
like
up 12 points with 3 minutes left.
Yep. That was a game we should have won. So it's those games where we had the lead and we reasonably should have won it and then just gave it up late. And in that same regard, like you already said, the Browns game, 20-17, like we were leading that game too. The first 3 quarters of the game and just shat it away. We win 1, maybe 2 of those games and like we're in, we're competing.
We're the 9th. We would be the 6th seed right now if we won 2 of those games. 2 out of the 3, we're sitting at 9-7.
Oh yeah,
as the 6th seed. So like that's just it sucks. It sucks. We don't know how to win games.
We'll see what we can do with it this year coming up. That's all the time we have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. This felt like a good episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what your thoughts are as far as some of these matchups go, or what some of your predictions are for these bowl games and or the college football playoffs.
For sure. All I got to say is go like, subscribe, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You know the deal. All I got to say is go Hawkeyes and bear down.